Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Hi, it's Dr. Gemma, and I am broadcasting here from Base Camp Prius of Love in the beautiful town of Big Bear Lake in San Bernardino County, California. I am on vacation, and I am vacationing as only I can, which is to say, locked in a hotel room in an incredibly scenic spot, doing continuing ed classes, and then running in between classes, and eating wonderful food. So, if that's not the basis for a podcast episode, what is? Now, there's the usual comments we get through, so let me get through them. Comments are welcome, either on the Blogspot page, which is cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com, or on our Ravelry group, if you can take the new color choices over there. Either place, I try to keep an eye on things, although I've been a little lax this week because, well, other things to do. You can add yourself to our Cognitive Listeners map. You can look at my YouTube channel about different strategies to keep yourself going. But be aware, I will not add you as a follower on Instagram or Facebook. Too many crazies following me around over there, so no, locking everything down. I also am sitting here with an insanely good cup of decaf Earl Grey and the window open to suck in the beautiful mountain air. And I'm in my car because the town is pretty open. Everybody's wearing masks. People are very good about it, considering this is a resort town. That makes me happy. What is very noticeable is all the businesses have signs that say, please wear masks, please help us stay open. And there is a certain amount of civic spirit here, which is admirable. There's also bears. Bears everywhere. Bears are the theme of the town, and carved wooden bears are just everywhere. I gave in after about 18 bear-laden hours and started taking selfies with the bears and collecting the bears. They're not all in the show notes because there would be hundreds of them. But the bears and I have become good friends. In the meantime, speaking of good friends, in the warm thanks department, we have the Knitmores. I can't even remember. I'm so tired right now which night it was. Let me think. This is Thursday. As I record, it is Thursday at 4:02 p.m. on whatever day in April this is. I believe it is. Good heavens, it's April 15th. Happy it almost sort of used to be tax day. At any rate, it's Thursday, and I was going kind of nutty on Tuesday because I was by myself. The boys left Monday afternoon, and I had this really great, frantic kind of day Tuesday that I can barely remember, to be honest. But I did run. Yes, I remember running. At any rate, I ended up calling Gigi Knitmore, and we just went on chatting, and it was so good to see her and hear from her. And so there was a very cute, as only the Knitmores can be cute, picture of all of us. We were on my iPhone Zooming. Were we Zooming? We were FaceTiming. And who knew you could take pictures and everybody would be in the picture. I tried to maneuver the little window around so that I would look like I was standing behind Gigi, but I'm just not quite that clever. But if you'd like to see 3 generations of Knitmores, and if you also have longed to answer the eternal question, does Genevieve Knitmore really look that much like Gigi? You can go look at the picture. Yes, she does. On to what's on my hooks and needles. Well, in the midst of it all, I took the world's most agonizing law and ethics class. And I'm not going to go into it, but law and ethics is never a party. You know, it raises all your anxieties as a clinician, all the ways people can sue you, people are going to sneak up on you, etc. But I must say, in 30 years of L&E classes, this one set new records in excruciating. But I used it to finish this first of the Spectrum socks. In fact, I even did the heel and bound off the heel and the toe and got going. I'm pretty far, about an inch into the ribbing. I use 1 by 1 for 2 inches at the top of the leg. So I'm into that. And it's very wonderful. They're just gorgeous socks. The wild lettuce shawl, it's with me. It's on my bedside table. I haven't touched it in like a week. I, of course, thought I will be up there. I thought originally I'd be up here for 3 days, but I knew I'd extend it to 5 to get some quality time in silence, to be honest. I need the quiet after 7 months of patience. And a challenging 7 months it's been. Is pandemic, anyone? And so I thought, sure, I'm going to do knitting. And I even thought I might start a new sweater. And I was looking at the Outpost sweater from Magical Knits, I think it's called. And this is not in my show notes because I haven't even picked the thing up. It's just sitting in a kit by my bedside right next to the unloved but much loved wild lettuce shawl. Twin Faces vest is sitting under my desk at home. It's finished up to the armpits. Well, roughly. She's very tall. It's 14 inches, 2 skeins finished. And it's going to get a rescue line put in it and then sent to her, so that I can see how close I've gotten to the mark. As Jasmine succinctly put it, she is a bad client for receiving knitwear, except that she appreciates anything you send her. It's just that, as Jasmine and Gigi were both saying, she has this off-the-rack concept of clothing. And it's really hard to explain to her that knitwear doesn't have to be that way, that knitwear can actually fit you in a desirable way. You don't just kind of knit it and hope it lands on you with the right dimensions. But she really can't break that. In the meantime, oh no, I do have a link to the Outpost sweater. Aren't I clever? So all these links are in the show notes, of course. And at any rate, in the meantime, the temperature blanket was caught up before I left for Big Bear on Sunday afternoon. And it's just gorgeous. I just love my temperature blanket. And it is in a burst of canary yellow. It's actually a dark yellow for canary. I would think of canary yellow as more butter yellow than this is. But it looks like I'm going to be doing maybe like 20 rows of canary, which was good because I was really enjoying it when I finally got to the stray row of 71 degrees plus. And now that's kind of where my hometown seems to be stuck, is in the 70s. So I've already got in like 12 or 13 rows of the stuff. And I'm keeping track of the weather there from here so that I can add to it when I get home. But so far we are in a canary binge. If we can get to 81 degrees, I will get to use a color called Caution, which is orange yellow. But so far we are binging in canary. Socks, at the time I took the picture, I was wearing my socks from Dizzy Blonde Studios in the colorway Captain Tight Pants. And Dizzy Blonde apparently was running a lot of kits from the Stitches from Home show this week. I'm a little cynical on that. I want Stitches to survive, and I think it's great the way they're doing it. Having said that, the one thing I'm not really willing to do is shop their marketplace. But I think the classes and such are terrific. I'm not willing to pay $5 so I can shop somebody's stuff that I can find at their own website. Now, I know they're doing special deals for Stitches and whatnot, and I appreciate it. But I am really, really sable on any kind of yarn I would want right now. So that's also guiding my view of things. As I sit here, I'm not wearing any of my knitwear except my mitts. It's about 55 degrees here, and I did a run, so I'm wearing running leggings and running socks and running shoes, and more about that later, and a sweatshirt with a full-length jog bra under it, and that's got to keep me going. Alrighty, let's move on. So you know what this means, right? Dizzy Blondes. This week was the week I was going to open my brand new electric eel spinning wheel and go to town on it and try that new Churro roving, none of which I have done. They are sitting in my study looking unloved. So let's move on to a strategy, shall we? Now you may remember back when I was a working stiff a week ago, I was teaching you about dialectical behavioral therapy, and we were using this strategy based on managing distress, and this one is using the acronym IMPROVE. And the logic is, improve the moment. If you're stuck in a stressful situation, you can't get out of it, you just do things to cope being stuck there. Using the acronym IMPROVE, she says as she shoots tea up her own nose. So, ironically enough, we're on the V, which stands for vacation. Vacation is the concept. It's very much like the push away from the ACCEPTS acronym that we talked about, where you're stuck and you can't go anywhere, and so you just go to Fiji, close your eyes, and think about being somewhere else. I will never be able to talk about this without remembering my friend Dr. Lori, an incredibly gifted clinician who's thriving in her own private practice in LA right now. We would be at an agency meeting, and the boss would get aggressive and unpleasant. And Lori would literally sit there and go, la, 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 in my happy place. She would say it out loud. A kind of courage I've always lacked, I must say. And I used to say, Lori, please, don't do that. You're going to get in trouble with the boss. And she would say, well, they need to know how unbearable they're being. And I would say, they're going to write you up or fire you or something. No, she managed to be management eventually, and before she realized it was a no-go and she should be in private practice. And that is a happy story. But nonetheless, no, vacation means you're sitting at a long, endless meeting, and you basically start to fantasize. You make sure your face is fixed in position. You stare at the boss, and you remember what it's like to walk on the beach in the early morning in Fiji after a beautiful run with the waves crashing and your boys still asleep in the hotel room and the air incredibly fresh and tingly, and the only one up basically being you and the Fiji Islanders, who are incredibly kind, hospitable people who wave and shout and cheer when they see you run by. Oh, I'm sorry, I just took a vacation. That's how you do it. And of course, the trick is never to get caught. Now, there are other popular ways to vacation besides fantasy. I used to keep one boss hopping because I figured out screen switching on my computer that I had to bring to every meeting because I was management. And she began to realize that I was screen switching, and so she would make a point of trying to walk behind me and catch me. She never did succeed, which I'm proud of. But that was vacation, when you see your kid who's in online school and he's looking at videos that are not of his class. That's vacation. That's abusing the skill, but it still is an example. So the idea is, if you can sort of walk your brain away in some way from the incredibly painful meeting or boring lecture or whatever has you trapped. Caveat, do not do it if you're standing in front of the boss being lectured. That is not the moment to use the V skill. That's the moment where you want to do like the P skill for pray. Or also constructively the R skill for relax. Take deep breaths quietly, and of course the boss will not know why she starts to do it too, because it's a human instinct to respond that way to a person in front of you, quietly breathing deeply. Put a lid on it. Well, we're back to hotel room cuisine from my Instant Pot, and boy is that happy. Good heavens, I'm booking through this thing. I think it's because I'm trying to stay awake. I'm just sitting on the side of the road in the village of Big Bear, watching tourists go by. At any rate, I'm back to hotel room cuisine. Now, I have to tell you, we are at the Lagunita Lodge here in Big Bear, and we're right on the lake with a beautiful view. We actually have a little courtyard in front of us and then the lake, but it's very pretty, and it's superb. For $78 a night, we have a condo, and it is great. It is the most fully stocked condo or kitchen suite I've ever been in. It's got pots and pans and plenty of silverware and plenty of cooking gear and glasses and anything you could want, plates, serving utensils. This thing is amazing. They were very, very strict when we checked in about no vaping, no smoking, no pets, no animals, and I can see why, because they're keeping this place up beautifully, and it is just perfect. And for $78 a night, well, I couldn't even have gone to Ventura, as I usually do, for that low a price. So, of course, I brought my Instant Pot, and of course I brought several cans of chopped tomatoes and coconut cream, and of course I brought several packages of vacuum-sealed frozen chicken thighs, and of course it all went in the first night with some chopped onions. to the Instant Pot. And my husband was a little shocked. I actually did it the first morning when we got there. We got there late Sunday, and Monday morning, even though we knew we were going out for a meal, I was sitting there cooking in the Instant Pot. This was good because if you know hotel room Instant Pot cuisine, you need the time for the flavors to really mellow into each other to make a great curry. And if I'm feeling nice, I'll put the whole recipe in, but I did this once before. Well, back in September, so I don't know how many of you got the recipe. Instant Pot cuisine requires really just some planning, an Instant Pot, and a Trader Joe's. I go to TJ's and I buy their pre-chopped package of onions, white onions, and then, or yellow, who can tell? They're chopped and there's no skins. And then I buy these packets they have of vacuum sealed, pre-cooked broccoli, and then another one of cauliflower, and it is cooked in olive oil with black pepper. And that's key because this is going to be part of the seasoning. Okay, and then I brought with me some curry powder. And I brought 2 cans of chopped tomatoes and 2 cans of coconut cream, as in coconut milk but with full fat, and a couple packages of chicken thighs. So I mean about 6 chicken thighs. And these were frozen, so they acted as ice cubes on the trip up. About a 2-hour drive. But anyway, so you just basically turn on the Instant Pot and put it all in there, and chicken on the top, and you cook it for about 10 minutes because the chicken was frozen when I cooked it. If it's not frozen, probably 5 to 6. But anyway, you cook it and you stir it around and let the flavors mellow, and then you take it off the heat and you put it in the fridge, because we didn't eat it that first day, which was fine. And so the next day I just turn it on, heat it up, and for one meal I ate the chicken. And I had a little bit left over, so I just deboned it and put the meat back in. And then every day when I get up, I put this thing on warm. I put it in the Instant Pot, put the whole big container back in the Instant Pot, put it on warm, and really just let it sit for most of the day. This is really good. And you can add to it, as I did. Last night, I went to the Himalayan restaurant. It's actually called the Himalayan. And I ordered lamb masala, which is lamb in really a similar sauce, a coconut cream sauce. Theirs is milkier than Indian would normally be, I believe. A little less tomatoey. And I also got a container of raita, which is, of course, a yogurt concoction that is basically used to cool down hotter foods. I didn't really get spicy foods though, but at any rate. So last night I brought home the hot lamb masala and served it to myself with a generous side of my chicken broccoli cauliflower curry, and had raita with it, and then took goat cheese, which I always carry goat cheese, anybody sensible does, you know, and I sliced up the goat cheese. Well, I chopped it up because it was kind of crumbly. And I poured masala sauce over it, and that was like dessert. It was so darn good. So this is hotel room cuisine. If you look in the show notes, you can see a picture of our lovely fireplace. We have a gas fireplace in the condo. Did I mention this place is just perfect? And I sat there feeling like a princess, which I needed to, because I had been trapped in the room all day doing this 6-hour hideous law and ethics and knitting my sock. And then I just went out to get out of the room and picked up my masala after much driving around and considering. Well, I cheated. I also stopped first at Crave, Maine. And I should mention that too. But anyway, I stopped at Crave, Maine and had some lobster. And then I went to Himalaya, picked up my lamb masala. It was very sweet because they could not believe, the guys who ran the place really do seem to be Nepalese or Himalayan. And they kept saying, but you need rice, you need bread. And I said, no, I can't eat those things. They said suspiciously, you have it at home. And I said, no, I really can't eat those things. And when I got to the restaurant, even the chef came out to peer at me when I said, I'm Jenny, I'm the one who orders delicious food without rice or bread. And the maitre d' said, but you must order rice or bread unless you have it at home. And I said, no, I'm sick, I can't eat it, my doctor won't let me. At which point the cook came around and peered at me as though I'd grown a second head, and the sympathy on his face was very sweet and very moving. But no, I I have to tell you, the cheese covered in masala sauce, better than any bread or rice, in my humble opinion. So that's the hotel cuisine cooking. And there are pictures of it in the show notes. But I must tell you about Crave, Maine. Crave, Maine is a Maine lobster place on the main drag, Pine Knot Road, I think it's called, of the village. And all it is, they serve lobster and crab rolls. So delicious, baked garlicky bread, buttery and garlicky, which I can't eat, of course, stuffed with lobster tail or crab. So I went in my first night alone here, and it's like a cafeteria. You know, I just walked up and ordered the lobster tail and said, no bread, I'm diabetic. So they gave me extra lobster, and they were super nice about the whole thing. Now, if you grew up where I grew up, you're going to pay about $20 for a lobster tail. That's what I paid for this, and it was about that amount of meat. You know, slightly over a quarter pound. So I actually felt like I got a lobster tail dinner with no sides. They had sides, but none of them were edible for me. They were full of sugar, you know, macaroni, that type of thing. And so I felt like I had just gotten an a la carte lobster tail for a reasonable price. And that night I was so full that was all I could eat. But I went back last night and I had one. Meaning I had this delicious cup with hot buttered lobster in it. And then decided I wanted a little more, and so did the Himalaya thing. But this is a place called Crave, Maine. And there is a picture of my cup of lobster from the first night. And it made me insanely happy. Rolling along to shoot. Well, I'm running in Big Bear. I'm very pleased with myself. Which I have to be, because my running is a little on the pathetic side right now, but still. I'm doing my 30 minutes a day of something. And this week, it was Sunday, we were at home. It was my first day off. And I packed very slowly and carefully. And then I went running and decided I was going to run at home before I drove out here. And I did. I went for a nice run. And it went really, really well, and I was very pleased with myself. And then I packed the car and drove to Big Bear, which is quite scary. The road up has literally hairpin curves that you have to do at 10 miles an hour, and I thought my car was going to stall out going uphill. Nonetheless, Big Bear is pretty amazing, but those drives, not easy and not confidence-inducing. My husband did what I meant to do. Without knowing it, he came in by part of the Rim of the World Highway. He found it horrifying and said he was scared to have me drive it because he thought it would unnerve me. Luckily, by sheer dumb luck, I came in the northern way. I went across the north side of the San Bernardino Mountains and then swung through Victorville, which I'd never seen the full extent of. It's a big desert. Well, I'd call it a city. It's kind of like Spokane. There's no there. It doesn't have a full-blown city identity with skyscrapers and all that. But it's like this big sprawling desert town with houses that cost as much as you would pay in LA. Which kind of blows my mind, because I don't know why you'd pay that much to live there. I'd move to Iowa and try to get a job. Just saying, the desert, as long as I've lived here, that kind of high desert environment intimidates me still. But anyway, I drove through Victorville and then through Apple Valley and swung southeast through I think it's called the Lucerne Valley, and ended up creeping up a back road up the north side that eventually put me on the north side of Baldwin Lake and then Big Bear. So the next day we got up and we decided to go hike the Castle Rock Trail. I wore the wrong shoes like a dope. Just forgot. Had them laid out, was ready to go, forgot them, forgot my walking stick. So I found it very intimidating. And I got about half a mile up it. It was about 1.2 to the top. And I just said, okay, I'm dizzy, I'm getting acrophobia, which really bothers me. As I've aged, I'm unable to tolerate heights. I don't logically fear them, but when I see them, the world starts slipping sideways, which is kind of intimidating when you're standing on the edge of a ledge with, 600 feet of open air beneath you. So we rested, and then I took some pictures and then said, okay, I'm going to go down because that's enough for me. The boys went further. Meanwhile, I get back down to the car and was grateful because my shoes were sliding all the way. I was wearing Crocs, and they just didn't have the soles for this. But I get to the bottom and decided I would just walk I thought, you know, here I am, the boys are going to take another hour or so. I should just see Big Bear. I can't just sit at the car. So the interesting thing was I walked across the very dangerous road I was on because, you know, no side of the road and cars speeding around sharp curves and all that. And so there was a wealthy person's colony called Papoose Bay, which, yeah, not even going there. Yeah, offensive, yeah. Okay, just saying. So, you know, these things named by developers in the 60s, and the names hang on. Ugh. Can you imagine driving through a suburb of, pick a city, New York City, and going, here's White Baby Town. I can't either. But we have Papoose Bay. Taking a deep breath. Okay. Oh, so I went walking through this development. It was the most tragic thing I've ever seen. The houses were spectacular. These giant 4,000 square foot houses piled on top of each other with no room around them. Which, that might be okay. Maybe they don't want to take care of yards or anything like that. They don't want upkeep. But every 5 feet was a sign that said, no trespassing, residents only. It was the most paranoid thing. It was just unreal that I walked through these nice neighborhoods and people said hello, and I talked to one guy about his cute little Sheltie, you know, Bob, but I could not believe the paranoia. Like, they just apparently think that people come all the way up to Big Bear Lake to rob them or something. And what the heck would you keep in these beautiful houses in a place like this? I mean, I guess skis, but you could break into a house anywhere and get those. It was weird, but I suddenly understood that being wealthy makes people really paranoid. And that's got a lot to do with where our government is, that since we're losing the middle class, the people who are becoming wealthy simply are suspicious and distrustful. I mean, if you want to have a house in the mountains, don't leave the lalique lying around, you know? Like, that's kind of dumb. And I just couldn't get over it. And I thought, it was like walking through a prison camp, that there are all these people with beautiful homes, and all they can think of is paranoia. And I thought, I'm probably walking by more automatic weapons in this neighborhood than I walk by in a week up on the farm, although I'm kind of wondering about that because we got some white paranoia going on up there, but that's another story. So it was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful houses. And of course, let's be honest, for most of the people there, I was relatively safe looking, thank you, stereotyping, because I'm an older white woman, so, you know, all their paranoia was not getting excited, and, oh, I don't know, it's like life, they used to say life is wasted on the young. I feel like wealth is wasted on the wealthy, and I'm having the inevitable thoughts about all the homeless people that these houses could take care of, but that's just me. I don't really mind that people are wealthy, but the fact that it's introducing this kind of fear and paranoia into my world kind of offends me. Having said that, I'm still on a shoot, aren't I? And I thought I would talk about my gear from the ground up. And this was inspired by Jasmine Knitmore, actually, who was asking me about where I got the fitted soles for my shoes, fitted insoles. And of course, that's Roadrunner Sports, and they're all over the place in California. I was able to point her to a branch in Campbell up near her. And I've just been with Roadrunner for years. They started in San Diego, probably in the 90s. And they had an online presence almost as soon as it was possible. And they have a VIP club, and you pay them, I don't know, like $20 a year. And you get a discount, which basically brings everything down to the price it would be in a normal store. In other words, Roadrunner jacks their prices up so they can favor you with the VIP discount. However, the VIP discount was very useful back in the day. They made their own brand of less expensive running socks and running gear, and I really, really made out on the VIP discount there. On top of that, like Amazon Prime, free shipping, advance notice of sales, advance notice of new products, which when you're a running shoe person matters. So I have nothing to complain about that VIP running club because I am a loyal Roadrunner fan. And then in the early 2000s, I believe it was, they introduced a machine to their store where you stand on it and it custom molds your insoles. And I'm going to tell you right now, I've worn these things the minute I found out they had this machine. They used to charge like $95. I think as a VIP I'm getting it for $86. But let me tell you, it is worth it. Nothing I've bought off a shelf for a shoe insole has come close to the fitted ones. Nothing. When I got my latest pair, I put them in the new shoes I just bought, and I immediately felt my stance improved. I felt my balance was restored. It was beautiful. So if you're going to go out and you're going to spend $120 to $150 on running, walking, hiking, or trekking shoes, it is worth the extra money to finish the job and get these things. My last pair lasted me, I was figuring, about 12 years before I realized that I had changed so much in weight and build because I lost the 60 pounds with diabetes that I probably should replace them. And I was glad I did. I'm looking at buying a pair of really good trail running shoes because I'm running more trail than I expected to. And my current shoes are designed for stability and heavier weight people, heavier weight women. And I actually probably don't need to do that anymore at this point. I could probably wear a more medium weight shoe and just put the custom insoles into them. And that's pretty much what it's going to look like when I get the trail shoes. It'll be a lighter shoe, which is nice because when you have to lift your feet higher on trail. And I want to run in our back 40 in our back acreage. And that really requires a good trail shoe and some better support than the kind of running shoe I'm wearing now. And when you're on trail, you don't want to be on a high platform like I am with a stability heavily cushioned shoe, because that just gives you a higher risk of twisting an ankle. So anyway, what I'm saying is I'm looking at that. Now, no matter what you're doing, walking, running, biking, hiking, jogging, whatever you think you're doing, I really want to advocate for getting the right shoes. I was taught about the right shoes when I was in college. I ran for 7 or 8 years on just anything I had in the closet. And then they invented running shoes. I'm not kidding. And when I got my first pair of shoes, they changed my world. And they've only gotten better and better and more refined since that day, which I believe was about 1979 or early 1980. And I'm a believer. And I do think it's telling that I'm still running at 60 because I've protected my feet very hard. I gave up heels in my 20s. I would occasionally wear like a 1-inch, but I totally gave them up, I think, in my 30s, back in the 1990s, because I just finally reached a moment where I said, I don't have to do this. I don't have to look a certain way to please people. I'm just a therapist. I'm sitting in my office. I want to look friendly and approachable. And I've been wearing running shoes ever since. I did take some damage from my early years. I had on my right foot, the first 2 toes after my big toe were jammed together. And in the 90s, was it the 90s or the early 2000s? It was actually the mid 2000s, like about 2015. They came out with 5-toed shoes, which did not give you a lot of protection from the road surface, particularly if it was hot, because they had like a thin rubber bottom on them. But the thing they did was they separated your toes, and believe it or not, I wore them for about 3 years, and it corrected my toes. The doctor after doctor told me I had to live with it, that the one toe was going to jut into the other, and the toenail would always scratch the side of the other and make it bleed. Nope, I wore the 5-toed models for years. I wore them everywhere. I walked on city streets. Yes, it hurt if you stepped on a rock, and they really helped. But again, this all comes back to you have to protect your feet. And that means, particularly if you're a woman and you're buying into the insane high heel thing, I don't want to take away your feelings of beauty, but you're going to pay for that. And I think one of the ways people my age pay for this is bad knees and short Achilles tendons in the backs of their legs, plantar fasciitis, which I've had it off and on, although keto helps with that because it reduces swelling. And, there's going to be all sorts of problems if you don't take care of your legs. So please remember, those of you who are considerably younger than me, that you are in this for the long run. And a little management of your foot gear is going to change your life when you get to my advanced age. Okay, fluffy books. I am listening to The Air Affair. I have not returned to Zen and the Art of Writing. I need to go back to it. But there have been a lot of releases in the last week in my favorite book series. And that's what I'm reading. The Lady Darby series just released a book called A Wicked Conceit. And I've been reading that on my Kindle app and listening to The Air Affair. But also, if you're a fan of the series about the Regency nobleman Sebastian Sincere, spelled Saint Cyr, but I would imagine that's pronounced sincere, and that's kind of meant to be a little bit humorous or ironic. But anyway, they've got a new book out, and the Chronicles of St. Mary's, which are not to be missed if you're a literate geek, has a new book out as well. So I'll go into those in future episodes, but currently I'm really in The Air Affair and the Lady Darby series. I'm reading the Lady Darby book, A Wicked Conceit, because I'm eating over my Kindle, alone in my hotel room at night. So I haven't listened to The Air Affair very much because I haven't been knitting, which is shocking. Something I really like, Tea Turtle t-shirts. I put a picture of one of the ones I ordered. Tea Turtle does pretty much inoffensive, adorable t-shirts where they tend to infantilize the character. So yes, I have a t-shirt of General Leia Organa saying, "Call me General," but she looks sort of infantilized. I don't know how to explain it, like slightly big head. But anyway, it's very cute, but it does the job. So they had a sale for Mother's Day, and I mean $12 shirt sale. So I put my favorite of the lot. It's a dragon lying on a stack of balls of yarn saying, "I need more yarn." And there was a crocheting shirt, and I got one for the beloved husband about greatest dad. So, Tea Turtle, the link is in the show notes, and it's spelled pretty much the way you think it's spelled. T as in Thomas, E-E, and second word, the word turtle. The link to the sale is in the show notes. So on to the blather. Oh my God, I'm really running. That's the blather. I'm sort of stunned. When I don't want to run, I look in the mirror and I say, this is what 60 looks like. Now, I have to be honest here. Transparency, I had a miserable 60 crisis. I mean, I wanted to run a 10K on my 60th birthday. Instead, I had COVID after effects and also concussion after effects. I was barely crawling. I could barely stay awake after I saw my patients. On my 60th birthday, I had a lovely birthday party. I do remember that I had the whole pavilion idea. I had the boys erect a big tent in the front yard, and we ate out there. We had picnic tables set up, and we made the tent very luxurious. We put down carpets inside the tent, and then we moved a luxury queen inflatable bed inside the tent on a stand so it was not down on the ground. We put beautiful household bedding on it. We put one of our small cushy love seats out there. We put a table on a lamp out there, and we were hooked up to the Wi-Fi. It was our luxury pavilion because I decided I was going to be a queen on my 60th birthday. And the boys went out, because I do remember this, they bought me sushi, and we sat out in this glorious sunset and had dinner. And that was my 60th birthday. And it was a really good panacea for not getting to run the 10K. But I tried to tell myself all last year, see, I'm 60, I'm not a runner anymore. That it's time to retire, I'm not going to run. And you know what happened? I turned into a cranky, nasty, irritable, tired person. And so I have the bug back. I'm on week 4 of my Couch to 5K program. I'm up to the point where I think I'm running 5-minute bursts, and I'm really running. And I'm sort of stunned by this. And not only am I stunned, but it's really, you run for a few minutes and you walk, and increasingly you run more and more until you can run 10-minute bursts, and then they get rid of the minutes in between and you just run half an hour. And I keep thinking, do I want to do that? And I don't know, because the rate of increase has been very fast for me. At the same time, you're supposed to run 3 out of 7 days a week. Not me. I just am booking through these things. I think I'm really in the beginning of my 3rd week, but I just go out and run. I feel like running, I get up and I run. But the amount of run is increasing. So I repeated one day from week 3, and I'm in week 4, which is where things get serious. And I'm seriously, speaking of which, considering just repeating week 4. Now, having said that, I feel so much better. It's hard to describe. I feel so much more bright, confident. I feel powerful. I feel like, okay, it's kind of scary to be 60. There are some realities you have to face, but I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful because I feel like I spent a lot of my life working on making this possible, and now it's possible. And I'm very, very deeply grateful. It really does matter. I mean, I ran for years. I marathoned. I became very fit in my 40s, which is not when people normally expect that to happen. And it really does matter. I did follow good diet until the stress level in my jobs, until I worked in the prison, which was where my diet kind of went to heck. But my whole life, I've had problems with bloating, with my waist being too wide, and clothes fitting everywhere but the waist, and puffiness, and could not control my weight. And it's hard because if you see me most of the time, you're seeing me at some kind of festival or celebration where I feel like, okay, I can eat what I want for 1 day or 2 days. So you have to remember, you don't know me most of the time when I'm at home. And I'm not a big eater, and I've always been a salad eater, but I've been a carb eater. Remember in the 90s, they told us fat is bad, carb is good, so eat a lot of carb, particularly if you're exercising hard. So I picked up the habit of a lot of carb, and that has been a terrible loss for me because I gained so much. I got so puffy and out of control. So I should have known better. My father had diabetes, and he did well on what is basically the keto diet, which is what doctors used to recommend back in the 70s. But they've changed to the American Diabetes Association diet, which is contaminated by all sort of commercial interests at this point. Go read the books, or someday I'll include them here. So I've had to find my way back to keto. And I'm deeply grateful because, to be honest, I lost all my weight in keto, 65 pounds, without working out. And now that I'm working out, in the beginning I didn't have a lot of energy, but now that I'm working out with keto, I feel completely normal, that my body is very adjusted to it. However, my body feels great. My body is doing things like, when I run, my stomach goes dead flat like a teenager's. It's really kind of shocking. I haven't seen my gut look like that since the 1970s. So, you know, running was so important. Here I am at 7,000 feet this weekend, or this week, and I'm running. And let me tell you, that first trail, when the boys and I went up the Castle Rock Trail, the altitude change nearly killed me. I could tell it was all in my lungs. My legs were doing fine, but I literally could barely lift my knees to climb. And the next day I said, so what? And I found a really lovely bike path and running trail on the north side of the lake, the Alpine Pedal Path, and I ran the first half of it and turned around and ran back to the car. Took yesterday off to do the class from Purgatory on law and ethics, and then this morning I was supposed to do 2 hours of class. I ended up doing the equivalent of, I think, about 7 hours because I had done all my continuing ed for my license. So I knew the answers. So I was just racing through these things going, know that, nope, got that. So it was very nice. So I was cranking away on that, and I'm toying with the idea of doing more of that tonight just to get it done, because we have to do a whole bunch for my group practice to get a certification the boss wants for our practice. And they want to be sure that we've had classes in certain things, which we would be able to pretty much avoid otherwise. So, you know, we're doing cultural competence and diversity and more on confidentiality and specific laws around confidentiality for substance abuse, things like that. But I've taken all those. Believe it or not, when I was in the job from Hades, the one good thing about that job, they had a computer program where we could do online continuing ed, because most of the people were master's candidates. Master's candidates don't have to do any in-person classes. They can do it all online. So those of us who are psychologists, we have to do some in-person. But I used to go through that thing. The year that I did that, I had something like 156 continuing ed units, because I would just, anytime I got a spare moment on the job, I would start taking classes. And it was a lousy job, but anyway, I used to joke that that program was my only friend, and I loved it. And so it's really nice to be doing it again, and I'm retaking a lot of the programs I took just out of my own interest, but now I'm doing them for requirements, and I still know most of the answers, so it's been really fun racing through these things. At any rate, I'm in Big Bear, and this is my idea of a vacation. I still have 4.5 days left to see if I actually do knit. I have to also say, though, I have been hanging with the Knitmores on FaceTime 2 nights in a row, and that did keep me from feeling lonely. I wasn't sure how lonely I would feel in a new place. You know, the husband and the son came up on Sunday, and they stayed and left Monday night to take care of the animals, and also my son had school on Tuesday, which, you know, the animals had to be cared for. So I would have been happy if he'd been left here with me, but I think my husband was really worried that I get some real rest and silence. And I have to say that the day after they left, I said to my husband, I feel like emotionally I'm all clenched up. And I feel like on Tuesday, that was the day of unclenching, because I went on the run, and I wandered around the village, and I honestly can't think of what else I did. I read and I cooked, and that was about it. So I woke up Wednesday and said, now I have to do all these continuing ed units. I had to do my 6 hours of law and ethics for my own license renewal, and it's coming due in September. And I had to do, I went, the other thing, I've been souvenir shopping shamelessly. I realized I was going to spend 2 extra nights. I bought extra t-shirts. They're gifts for the boys, but I can wear them. Did I mention my son is now taller than me at 15? We're both enjoying that. And if you look in the show notes, you can see pictures of me with a lot of bear statues. And you can also see the really happy picture where it says back in sweater weather, because I've been wearing all around my Agnes bulky sweater and one of my hand-spun, hand-crocheted cowls, and of course my hand-sewn mask. So it's been incredibly happy, and this is rather disorganized, so thank you for your patience. There is one other great thing that happened that is hidden in all this Big Bear news, and that is last weekend, when I still had a week to go before vacation and was exhausted, I was sitting on the front patio and Lizard Boyfriend returned. Those of you who followed my video casts last year will remember Lizard Boyfriend. He was one of our local lizards, and he hung out on our patio in the front. He lived under the Chinese hawthorn. Nathaniel is our Chinese hawthorn. And he used to come out and flirt with me. He attempted on several occasions to suggest, well, you know, that we misbehave a little bit interspecies-wise. And then I watched him settle down with several nice girl lizards, and I've missed him all winter long. And to my shock, I was sitting on the front porch swing, and Lizard Boyfriend showed up. So Lizard Boyfriend's picture is in the notes, and I'm so happy about that. Also, let us not forget, it is Ramadan, and I have a big thing about Ramadan. Not a big thing. If I had a big thing, I'd observe it. But I admire Ramadan because I was raised Catholic, and Catholics have Lent when we're supposed to fast. And in my lifetime, you used to fast through Lent. Then it got watered down to just on Fridays and just on fish. You know, you could eat fish but not meat. And that all made sense in Northern and Western European climates. It was a way to use up the last of the salted preserved foods. So it made kind of economic sense, and it discouraged the wealthy from their conspicuous consumption. But then they just conspicuously consumed, you know, fish and vegetable with special sauces held over from this warm weather and all that. But I admire Ramadan because Ramadan's not kidding around. And I think it's really right. I think it's an extremely spiritually good thing to be reminded what hunger feels like. I'm not sure about the part where you don't drink water. I'm not sure about that. But again, my experience of most of the Muslims I've known is they're very humane about Ramadan. They recognize when your health would prevent it. They recognize when you have to modify it. But they're not like we were as Catholics, where they're really just changing the rules to make it almost non-existent. So I sort of admire it, because I think one of the problems in our world is we have people getting wealthy or born into wealth, and they don't understand how the other half, or in our case in America, the other 96% live. And they have no idea of what giving anything up is really like, to a point where it's uncomfortable or difficult. So I really admire Ramadan. I think it's this kind of great spiritual idea to keep people on the straight and narrow, and to remember what not having enough of the basics really would be like. So Ramadan oh dear. I'm going to say, I mean, look, I'm just going to sound like I have a Philadelphia accent, okay? Ramadan Mubarak, or Mubarak, depending where you come from. And if you're celebrating and honoring it, I really salute you and I thank you for doing something that brings you into the world of need that some of us got to see every day for 20 years on the job when we treated poor kids. And I am grateful that there are people in the world who want to know these things. And finally, Minerva gets the last word. If you go in, there's some pictures of her. I was just slogging through my last week of patients, and it was just so difficult. And I was down to the last day, and I thought, I can't make it. I've got 5 patients. So I run out of the room to go use a restroom, and I come back, and Minerva is stretched luxuriously across the keyboard of my laptop, where, you know, all my notes are that I need to write. And she's absolutely contented. And she has that look on her face that only a truly smugly happy cat can get. And I just couldn't help it. I took pictures of her and I did a close-up of the face. I learned an interesting factoid. Black cats like Minerva who get brown, that's oxidation. They're rusting. It's from being out in the sunlight. So it makes a lot of sense that Minerva is very brown on top of her black coat. Her predecessor, the much missed and much adored Fearless, was very, very black because Fearless actually in her later years tended to be under something, that she wasn't feeling very well as she aged. And so she tended to stay away from the direct light, yet she was very cold, so she always wanted to snuggle up with me. And Minerva's just wherever she wants to go because, you know, Minerva. So there we are. That is episode 23, and I leave you now as I sit in the Prius of Love, which has been my base camp for running and hiking and other adventures. Tomorrow morning, I don't want to drive down the mountain with all the tourists coming up for the weekend. And it's clearly already getting more touristed here on Thursday evening. So I really am going to leave tomorrow, which is hard to do. I really would like to stay until like Sunday, but I don't want to see the touristas overload the place, and I certainly don't want to compete with them on the narrow mountain roads any more than I have to get down the hill. So tomorrow I leave and I will have a weekend at home with my boys, which would be very nice because I needed to get some things done there. And hopefully I will do a bunch more of these classes. So this is my last evening here. And the interesting thing is, you'd think at a moment like this I would go out and have a wonderful dinner. Frankly, my own food right now, I've got half of that lamb masala left and a goodly amount of the raita and a goodly pot of my own chicken curry stew. And I don't think there's anything in this town I've found that I can eat that's going to taste better than that. So, you know, another plus for instant pot cuisine on vacation is all I'm saying. So having said that, thank you so much for listening. I'm actually, in a strange way, looking forward to seeing my patients again next week. Yeah, I am. I kind of miss them. But I'm also now really thinking about carefully planning my next vacation, because I can apply for it now. I have enough hours accumulated. And I've really learned this time. I let my vacation go 7 months, and at the 6-month mark, I was so exhausted, and I had to give them a month's notice to get the vacation. And I realized that's insanely stupid. So, yeah, planning my vacations. But I must say, I don't expect to take my next vacation at Sunnybank. I actually am considering that it would probably be in September, not in August. And it might, at least part of it, might be up in San Jose. Just saying, with some friends. Just saying, you can guess. Okay, so many lessons learned, many wonderful meals had, many pictures of bears taken. And we've discovered Big Bear, which is 2 hours from home. Now, most of the people where we live don't come here. They actually go up to Mammoth, which is a considerable drive. It's about a 4.5, 5 hour drive from where I live, but much more accessible in terms of roads. I think the twisty roads put people off. The other thing is, the strange thing about Big Bear, it's very suburban. I wasn't expecting this kind of crowd or this many people. But it is, as they say, a 4 seasons resort with pretty good skiing and pretty nice summer stuff. I would love to come here in the summer because you can take the ski lift to the top of the mountain and hike down, and the views are just amazing. So many plans. I don't know. The trip down tomorrow is probably going to convince me I never want to do this again, but we will see. And in the meantime, my Ring doorbell, my video doorbell is going off. I just saw my son go in our front door. And it's always good to remember I'm not as alone here as I probably seem, that I'm constantly talking to them through the Ring video and on Zoom and everything else. But the silence here has been amazing. And I got my first good night's sleep, not last night, but the night before, where I actually came home exhausted from my run. I guess that was, it was Wednesday night. I wasn't running. It was the day I did the horrible class. But I came home exhausted, crawled into bed, and no, that was yesterday. It was the day I did my run. So, I did my run. I explored town. I walked all around. I did no work. And I can't even remember. I had the lobster for dinner at Crave, Maine, and landed at home and was just spectacularly happy to go to bed at 9 o'clock. Last night I was up a little too late, but nonetheless. Even so, I'm finally sleeping again. I'm eating well, and I'm eating my own cooking, which is kind of nice to eat here. And I'm just enjoying hanging out in the village and walking up and down the road and looking in all the shop windows now that I have bought an obscene amount of t-shirts this week. Okay, everybody, thank you for listening. It's been lovely chatting with you. And hopefully, I don't know when I'm going to load this up, probably Saturday morning before I release it. But everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. And don't forget to wear your mask, wash your hands, socially distance, and get your vaccines. All right, bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.